The bitter wind scoured the desolate landscape, kicking up crimson dust that tasted of metal and ancient sorrow. Yet, amidst this stark, alien tableau, a startling sight emerged: a cluster of tiny, scaly forms, barely larger than Cale's hand, huddled together for warmth. Their scales, a mosaic of deep emerald and obsidian, shimmered faintly in the weak, distant sunlight filtering through the perpetual atmospheric haze. Each miniature snout ended in a delicate, almost translucent horn, and from their throats issued a series of plaintive chirps, impossibly fragile against the howling desolation. Their vulnerability was immediate, a sharp, unexpected twist in the monotonous rhythm of this forgotten world, drawing the eye, holding it captive against the backdrop of endless, rust-colored plains. These were creatures of myth, reduced to helpless bundles of life. Cale, a man etched by solitude and the relentless demands of a distant, resource-scarce exoplanet, moved with the quiet efficiency of someone profoundly accustomed to living alone. His outpost, a prefabricated habitat barely larger than a dropship, sat like a stubborn defiance against the encroaching emptiness. Every morning, he walked the perimeter, a methodical routine that grounded him in the vast, indifferent cosmos. He was known, if known could apply to a man so reclusive, for his small, automated hydroponics farm, a beacon of verdant life in a world starved for it. His life was a symphony of programmed harvests, nutrient cycling, and atmospheric filtration, a delicate balance he maintained with unwavering precision. He was a human colonist, yes, but more accurately, he was a silent steward of a miniature ecosystem, a self-contained island of purpose. It was during his routine check of the atmospheric scrubbers, nestled among jagged, volcanic outcroppings a few clicks from his habitat, that Cale made the discovery. A faint whimpering, barely audible over the wind, snagged at his attention. He followed the sound, his steps cautious, until he saw them, a clutch of abandoned dragon hatchlings. Dragons? The word felt like a relic from another galaxy, a fantastical whisper from ancient Terran legends. On this world, known only as Xylos 7, the consensus among the few remaining colonists was that such creatures, if they ever existed here, were long extinct, or merely the fevered dreams of prospectors driven mad by solar flares and isolation. Yet, here they were, undeniably real, undeniably helpless, their small bodies shivering against the chill of the alien rock. Their survival, even for a few hours more in this harsh environment, seemed an impossible gamble. Their unblinking, intelligent eyes, dark as polished obsidian, stared up at him with an innocence that pierced through his carefully constructed solitude. The moment stretched, suspended between the cold logic of survival and the sudden, overwhelming surge of an unexpected empathy. These were extraordinary creatures, a secret perhaps too profound for his solitary existence. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that this discovery would irrevocably alter his quiet life. He had stumbled upon something magnificent, something that demanded protection, demanded answers. His hands, usually stained with nutrient solution and plant residue, now felt strangely empty, poised on the brink of an impossible choice. This is just the beginning of Cale's extraordinary journey, a tale of unlikely guardianship on a wild, enigmatic planet. Subscribe now to follow Cale's unfolding story and discover the hidden secrets that Xylos 7 holds, where ancient myths are far more real than anyone ever dared to imagine. The impossible choice gnawed at Cale. Leaving the hatchlings to perish in the relentless cold, and the gnawing hunger of Xylos 7 felt like a betrayal of his own hidden humanity, a concession to the brutal logic of this unforgiving world. His carefully balanced existence, a meticulous choreography of resource management and self-preservation, now seemed flimsy, almost irrelevant, in the face of these small, living miracles. Prudence dictated he walk away, report his find to the colony, a move that would undoubtedly lead to their dissection, study, or worse, exploitation. But looking into those dark, intelligent eyes, Cale felt a deep, instinctive pull. Their vulnerability was a silent plea, a resonance with a part of him he thought long dormant. His human empathy, an inconvenient and often dangerous trait in the harsh realities of deep space colonization, decisively won over pragmatism. He would care for them. This decision, made in a heartbeat, instantly shattered the comfortable routine of his life. His small, automated hydroponics farm, designed exclusively for growing basic sustenance crops for one human, was woefully unprepared for a clutch of rapidly growing dragon hatchlings. The harsh environment outside his outpost, with its toxic atmosphere and scarcity of natural food sources, rendered releasing them an equally fatal option. Kale knew he would need to adapt, and quickly. He couldn't just feed them his nutrient paste. Their scaly bodies, their sharp claws, even their faint, nascent chirps, spoke of a different biological need, a carnivorous one, perhaps. His farm, a triumph of efficiency, would now need to pivot, to produce specialized nutrition, something far beyond the synth protein supplements he currently manufactured. This was an obstacle of considerable magnitude, threatening to unravel the very foundation of his solitary survival. With a newfound purpose, Kale began his meticulous research, a desperate race against the clock of their accelerating growth. He salvaged what he could from his limited colony database, filtering through archaic biological classifications and theoretical xenofauna entries. More fruitfully, he delved into the scattered, barely decipherable alien texts he had painstakingly collected over the years from ancient, forgotten ruins across Xylos 7. These fragmented records, believed by the colony's xenolinguists to be mere religious etchings, now took on a startling, urgent significance. He spent hours cross-referencing symbols with known biological markers, searching for any mention of reptilian physiology, protein requirements, or metabolic rates. The texts were enigmatic, filled with poetic descriptions of winged fire lizards and sky serpents, but occasionally, a specific symbol for a nutrient-rich flora or fauna would emerge, offering a tantalizing clue. His hydroponic system, until now a model of predictable output, became a laboratory of frantic experimentation. Kale modified the nutrient solutions, introducing rare earth elements, and synthesized amino acids he hoped would mimic the dragon's natural dietary needs. He jury-rigged specialized growth chambers, adapting the light spectrum and humidity levels based on his increasingly speculative interpretations of the ancient texts. He even attempted to cultivate a fast-growing, protein-rich fungus, hoping it would provide a sustainable food source. The air in his habitat, usually filled with the gentle hum of machinery, now had an underlying current of urgency, a palpable tension as Kale pushed his small facility to its absolute limits. Every successful nutrient blend, every thriving batch of specialized fungus, felt like a small victory against the overwhelming odds. Failure meant starvation for his tiny, scaly charges, a fate he was now fiercely determined to prevent. His life, once a quiet monologue, had suddenly, irrevocably become a desperate, hopeful dialogue with the unknown. As the weeks bled into months, Kale found himself increasingly subsumed by the demands of his adopted family. The initial scientific detachment he'd held crumbled under the relentless charm of the growing hatchlings. Each displayed a startling individuality, a nascent personality emerging from the scaly bundles of instinct. The one he named Ignis, all fiery orange scales and bold curiosity, was always the first to taste a new nutrient paste, sniffing cautiously before diving in with gusto. Terra, a sturdy, earth-toned hatchling, preferred to burrow into the warm soil of the repurposed growth beds, emitting deep, rumbling purrs that vibrated through Kale's worn boots. Ether, sleek and obsidian, was the most graceful, often stretching her small wings, still too fragile for flight, in languid, elegant movements. And then there was Luna, with iridescent, moon-silver scales, who possessed an unnerving intelligence in her dark eyes, observing Kale's every move with an almost human understanding. He didn't just feed them, he talked to them, whispering observations about the alien sky, the intricacies of the hydroponics system, even recounting stories from a Terran childhood he barely remembered. An unexpected, profound attachment had blossomed, weaving itself into the very fabric of his solitary existence. He was no longer just their caretaker, he was their protector, their confidant, perhaps even their surrogate parent. Their growth, however, was astonishing, a testament to the efficacy of Kale's frantic tinkering and the inherent vitality of their species. What had started as palm-sized creatures now spanned a meter or more from snout to tail, their scales hardening, their claws sharpening, and their nascent horns developing a formidable edge. The logistical challenges escalated dramatically. His small facility, once a marvel of efficiency for one, was groaning under the strain of feeding 4 rapidly maturing predators. The protein fungus, while successful, could barely keep up with their voracious appetites, and Kale found himself constantly adjusting nutrient flows, reallocating precious energy from his own life support to fuel their insatiable growth. The gentle chirps of their infancy gave way to deeper, throaty growls and the occasional, unsettling hiss when they jostled for food. Their instincts were becoming pronounced. Kale often found them practicing mock hunts on errant hydroponics drones, their eyes gleaming with an ancient predatory light that sent a shiver down his spine, a reminder of what they truly were. Then, the disturbances began. Subtle at first, easily dismissed as atmospheric anomalies or the planet's geological rumblings. A low, persistent thrumming Kale heard only in the deepest hours of the Martian night, a vibration that resonated not just through the rock but through his very bones. It was too deep, too rhythmic to be tectonic. He started noticing unusual atmospheric pressure fluctuations on his weather monitors, wild spikes that defied explanation, often accompanied by distant, resonant echoes that seemed to ripple through the thin air. The wind, which had been a constant, monotonous wail, now carried a new, unsettling quality, occasionally punctuated by an almost subsonic roar. He'd pause, his breath held, listening, but the sound would always dissipate before he could pinpoint its origin. Yet the feeling persisted, a growing certainty that these were not natural phenomena. Something monumental, something powerful and ancient, was moving across Xylos 7, its passage disturbing the very fabric of the planet, drawing closer to his isolated outpost. A primal fear, one he hadn't known since his early days of colonization, began to prickle at the edges of his carefully constructed calm. He knew, with an awful certainty, that these tremors and distant roars were connected to his growing charges, and that whatever was out there, it was coming for them. The unsettling feeling of an approaching, unseen force intensified, nagging at Kale's every waking moment. It was during one of his extended foraging excursions for rare earth minerals, essential for synthesizing the hatchling's complex dietary needs, that he stumbled upon something truly bizarre, something that seemed to offer a clue to the tremors and roars. Nestled deep within a labyrinthine cavern system, long thought to be geologically inert, he discovered a series of ancient, cryptic carvings. They weren't the crude etchings he'd seen near his outposts, but intricate, sophisticated reliefs, glowing faintly with an internal luminescence visible only in the cavern's deep gloom. These depicted massive draconic figures, not unlike his hatchlings, but scaled to epic proportions, their forms powerful and majestic. They weren't just animals, they were gods, or at least, revered beings. One particular carving captivated him, a colossal dragon, wings spread wide, seemingly embracing a celestial event, a configuration of Xylos 7's dual moons aligning perfectly with a distant, nebular cloud, casting an ethereal, shimmering light upon the land. The imagery was so vivid, so detailed, it felt less like art and more like a historical record. He spent hours tracing the lines with gloved fingers, trying to decipher their meaning, a growing sense of dread and wonder warring within him. Could these carvings be a prophecy? Was the celestial event imminent? He immediately linked them to the hatchlings, their lineage, their very existence feeling increasingly intertwined with the planet's ancient mysteries. His commitment to the dragons, once an impulsive act of compassion, had evolved into a profound responsibility, a sacred trust. This shift, however, came at a steep price. Kale found himself making increasingly critical decisions about rationing his own dwindling supplies. His protein rations were halved, then quartered. The energy allocation devoted to his personal space heater was diverted to maintain optimal temperatures for the growing dragons. Even the water recyclers, usually set for constant output, were adjusted to prioritize the hatchling's complex hydration formulas. He felt the weight of his commitment pressing down on him, a physical ache in his chest. Each time he bypassed his own needs for theirs, a new layer of dedication settled over him, solidifying his resolve. He wasn't just caring for pets. He was safeguarding a future he barely understood, driven by an instinct far older than his human logic. The thought of failing them, of seeing their intelligent eyes dull with hunger or cold, was unbearable. One moonlit night, as Kale was making his routine perimeter check, the sky above him shimmered with an unnatural intensity. The dual moons, usually distinct, seemed to bleed into each other, casting a strange, distorted light across the red plains. Suddenly, a vast shadow, impossibly immense, flitted across the moon-drenched landscape, eclipsing the stars for a fleeting moment. It was a silhouette of impossible scale, far too massive to be any known local fauna, too grand to be a mere meteorological phenomenon. It passed with breathtaking speed, leaving behind only an echoing silence and a profound sense of disruption in the air. Kale's breath caught in his throat. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drum against the alien quiet. Was it a trick of the light? The atmospheric haze playing havoc with his perception? He desperately wanted to dismiss it as a hallucination, a product of his isolation and mounting exhaustion, or perhaps an atmospheric effect caused by the unusual lunar alignment. But the sheer scale of it, the undeniable impression of colossal, powerful wings, seared itself into his memory. He stood frozen for a long moment, scanning the empty sky, a cold knot of dread tightening in his stomach. The shadow was gone, but its presence lingered, an undeniable sign that he was not alone on Xylos 7, and that whatever was out there was far larger, far more ancient, and infinitely more terrifying than he had ever imagined. The carvings, the tremors, the growing dragons, it was all connected, and the pieces were beginning to align into a picture Kale was not sure he was ready to see. The shadow, though fleeting, had been a stark premonition, a hint of the ancient power stirring on Xylos 7. Yet, it was the hatchlings themselves who began to truly reveal the depth of their extraordinary nature. Kale watched, awestruck and increasingly concerned, as Ignis, during a particularly spirited play session, accidentally exhaled a small, flickering spark of fire, barely larger than a flicker from a synth burner, but unmistakably heat-generating, searing a tiny spot on a discarded nutrient tray. Terra, usually so grounded, once nudged Kale's hand with her snout, and for a split second Kale distinctly felt a gentle, comforting thought, not spoken, but undeniably there, a soft, telepathic murmur of contentment. Ether, while attempting to snatch a fleeing insect drone, let out a piercing shriek that momentarily overloaded Kale's audio sensors and caused the drone to simply seize up and drop, a minor, but remarkable, display of sonic disruption. And Luna, always the most unnerving, often fixed Kale with her intelligent gaze, and he would find himself inexplicably pulled towards a task he had forgotten, or a tool he had misplaced, as if her will was gently guiding his own. These were not mere animal instincts. These were nascent abilities, small, uncontrolled bursts of power that hinted at a true, terrifying potential, far beyond anything Kale had ever encountered or even read about in the most outlandish xenofauna logs. The awe Kale felt was tinged with a growing apprehension. What would they be capable of when fully grown? The realization that these beings were not simply rare creatures, but possessors of incredible, perhaps dangerous, abilities, solidified Kale's resolve to keep them a secret. He began to actively avoid contact with the main colony, fabricating increasingly elaborate excuses for his reduced communication and lack of resource contribution beyond the initial allocation. He claimed equipment malfunctions, rare mineral vein depletion, and even a localized, unprecedented dust storm that conveniently disrupted subspace comms. Each fib, each evasive maneuver, drove a deeper wedge between him and the distant human settlement, deepening his isolation. He feared with a visceral intensity that if the colony knew about the dragons, they would be seen not as living wonders, but as a threat to be neutralized, or worse, a resource to be exploited, dissected, or weaponized. The weight of his responsibility grew heavier, a solitary burden in the vastness of space. He was entirely alone in this, the sole guardian of an unbelievable secret, and the silent, pressing solitude often threatened to overwhelm him. His fears of external awareness were not unfounded. One morning, while retrieving a remote atmospheric sensor unit, Kale made an unsettling discovery. Tangled in a thorny, alien vine, partially obscured by red dust, lay the shattered remnants of a reconnaissance drone. It wasn't a standard colony model. Its sleek, angular design, the metallic sheen, and the intricate, glowing markings etched into its carapace were unlike any human technology Kale had seen. It was clearly advanced, sophisticated, and unmistakably of non-human origin. The drone was damaged beyond repair, its optical sensors cracked, its propulsion unit twisted into an unnatural shape, but its purpose was clear. It had been surveying the area, and with an undeniable focus. Kale's blood ran cold. This wasn't some random alien probe. This drone had been here, in his sector, observing. The implication was chillingly clear. Others were aware. Others knew about the unusual energy signatures, perhaps the atmospheric anomalies, or even, God forbid, the growing presence of the hatchlings. This discovery confirmed his deepest fears. The secret he so carefully guarded was no longer his alone. The planet was not only awakening, it was being watched, and the watchers were not human. Kale felt a profound sense of foreboding, a certainty that the peaceful, hidden existence he had painstakingly built was about to be irrevocably shattered. The isolation he had cultivated was about to be broken, not by his chosen family, but by an unknown, alien force. The unsettling discovery of the non-human drone, fractured and eerie in the crimson dust, confirmed Kale's deepest anxieties. He was no longer just safeguarding a secret from his own kind, he was now operating under the gaze of an unknown, possibly hostile, intelligence. The fragile peace surrounding his outpost felt like a pre-dawn chill before an inevitable storm. It was a pressure he felt acutely, a constant hum of danger just beneath the surface of his daily routine. This external threat, however, soon found an internal echo. The automated communications from the main human colony, usually a benign trickle of system updates and resource requests, began to intensify. Messages, initially polite inquiries, quickly morphed into pointed questions about his significantly reduced resource output and his increasingly isolated status. Colony Central to Outpost Kale, rerouting initiated for Sector G7. Please confirm operational integrity and resource contribution schedule. Your current output registers 72% below projected quota. Then, later, more insistent. Kale, repeat. Your comms are intermittent. Resource anomalies detected. Require immediate update on operational status. Prolonged isolation is not advised. He found himself concocting increasingly elaborate and less believable excuses. Widespread system failures due to solar flare activity, unexpected geological instabilities requiring constant recalibration of his extractors, even a localized, unprecedented plague affecting his hydroponics. Each fabricated response felt like a tightening knot in his stomach. He pictured the automated systems flagging his inconsistencies, the cold, algorithmic logic of the colony's central AI sifting through his lies. He knew it was only a matter of time before they sent a survey team, a scout ship, or worse, a recovery team to check on his welfare, and inevitably discover the dragons. The colony, designed for predictable resource extraction, would surely see his defiance as a threat to their collective survival, a betrayal of their shared mission. Meanwhile, the hatchlings, growing with astonishing rapidity, mirrored Kale's escalating anxieties with their own burgeoning independence. They were no longer the clumsy bundles of scales he had found. They were powerful, graceful creatures, their instincts sharply honed. Ignis, now boasting a wingspan that barely fit within the largest repurposed growth chamber, began to test his nascent fire breath, not just sparks now, but controlled jets of superheated gas that singed the tough synth fabric of their enclosure. Terra, with her increasing bulk, found new joy in exploring the deeper, more complex caves around the outpost, her powerful claws leaving deep gouges in the ancient rock. Ether and Luna, the most agile, were constantly pushing the boundaries of their containment, their wings strengthening with each powerful beat, their aerial maneuvers becoming increasingly daring in the small confines. Kale struggled desperately to keep them contained and safe. Building stronger barriers, reinforcing the enclosure, patching up nascent escape routes, became a constant, exhausting battle against their growing power and innate desire for freedom. He knew their containment was temporary, a mere delaying tactic against the inevitable. Their eyes, once filled with innocent curiosity, now gleamed with the wildness of their ancient lineage, beckoning them towards the vast, untamed expanses of Xylos 7. He saw the impatience in their movements, the restless energy that pulsed beneath their scales. They were ready to leave, and Kale was keenly aware that his ability to protect them was diminishing with each passing day. The atmospheric disturbances that had begun subtly now intensified dramatically, mirroring the growing pressure on Kale from both the colony and the hatchlings. The rhythmic thrumming in the ground became a constant, low growl, vibrating through the habitat's foundations, rattling loose tools on shelves. The air itself took on an electric charge, the thin atmosphere crackling with unseen energy. During one of his increasingly desperate attempts to track the hatchlings, Luna had managed to find a new, higher perch on a precarious rock formation far from the outposts. Kale stumbled upon a discovery that chilled him to his core, dwarfing all previous anxieties. Etched into a sheer cliff face, hundreds of meters high, were massive claw marks. These weren't the relatively delicate gouges of his growing hatchlings. These were canyons. Deep fissures in the ancient rock, each indentation easily large enough to swallow a human whole. The scale was incomprehensible, a testament to a creature of truly colossal proportions. He ran his hand over the rough, cold stone, the sheer size of the marks creating a profound sense of dread that settled heavy in his gut. These marks were fresh, too fresh to be millennia-old geological features. The creature that had made them was alive, active, and vast beyond anything Kale could have imagined. This was not a passing shadow, this was a tangible, terrifying presence. The Dragon Queen, a whisper from the alien texts, a myth, suddenly felt terrifyingly real. Her presence, he realized with a cold certainty, was no longer a distant threat, it was imminent, palpable. A force of nature inexorably moving towards his little outpost, drawn by the burgeoning power of her own kind, and by the unwitting human who had chosen to shelter them. The air grew heavy, the sky darkening with an uncanny, unnatural twilight, as if the very planet held its breath. The air grew heavy, the sky darkening with an uncanny, unnatural twilight, as if the very planet held its breath. Kale, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs, understood with a chilling clarity that the time for mere observation and anxious speculation was over. The massive claw marks, the intensifying atmospheric disturbances, the sheer scale of the looming presence, it all coalesced into an undeniable truth. Something was coming, something ancient and powerful, and it was coming for the dragons he had sworn to protect. He didn't know what form it would take, or what its intentions were, but his instincts, honed by years of solitary survival on a hostile world, screamed for action. He had to prepare. His preparations weren't for a fight against the dragons, an absurd notion given their bond, but for them, and perhaps with them. His priorities shifted from containing them to fortifying their sanctuary, transforming his small outpost into a stronghold that could withstand whatever force Mother Nature, or something far older, was about to unleash. He began by expanding the reinforced enclosure where the dragons now spent most of their time, not just in size, but in sheer structural integrity. He repurposed the heaviest blast doors from his dormant mining equipment, hauling them with grunting exertion and the aid of his automated loader, to create an impenetrable entrance. He shored up the walls with extra layers of compressed durasteel, usually reserved for asteroid impact shielding. The underground hydroponics chambers, once solely for food production, were hastily converted into a deeper, more secure burrow system, intricate tunnels providing escape routes and shelter from atmospheric bombardment. Kale meticulously checked every seal, every weld, every energy conduit, knowing that the smallest flaw could spell disaster. He worked tirelessly, driven by a primal urge to protect, his movements fueled by a desperate energy he hadn't known he possessed. He wasn't just building a physical barrier, he was building a testament to his commitment, a final, defiant stand against the encroaching unknown. Amidst the frantic labor, a profound emotional turmoil churned within him. Kale grappled with the potential consequences of his actions. He knew, deep down, that he had interfered with a powerful natural force, an ecological balance far older than humanity's fleeting presence on Xylos 7. He had nurtured mythical creatures back to life, and in doing so, had drawn the attention of something far grander. The outcome was terrifyingly uncertain. Would this ancient power acknowledge his protective efforts, or would it see him as an unwelcome intruder, a meddlesome pest? He thought of the colony, his past life, the predictable rhythms of his old existence, and it all seemed impossibly distant, a forgotten dream. His solitary journey had brought him to this precipice, and there was no turning back. He had chosen this path, and now he had to face its ultimate conclusion, whatever it might be. A tremor of fear, cold and sharp, ran through him, but it was quickly eclipsed by a fierce, protective love for Ignis, Terra, Ether, and Luna. He would not abandon them now. During a brief respite from his frantic fortifying, compelled by an unnerving intuition, Kale returned to the ancient carvings in the labyrinthine cavern. The air within the subterranean chamber felt heavier, charged with static, as if the very stone was anticipating a momentous event. He had brought more advanced scanning equipment this time, painstakingly translating the enigmatic symbols with a renewed sense of urgency. The glowing reliefs shimmered, almost pulsed, as if responding to the planet's growing energy. And then it clicked. The celestial alignment depicted in the most prominent carving, the one with the colossal dragon embracing the dual moons and distant nebula, wasn't just a historical event, it was a prophecy. The symbols, when deciphered through a sequence of astronomical calculations, spoke of the Great Return, the awakening of the Mother of Scales, during a specific, rare conjunction of Xylos' 7 celestial bodies. And to Kale's horror, the calculations indicated that this alignment was not a distant future event, but was fast approaching. Days, perhaps even hours, separated him from the fulfillment of the ancient prophecy. The Dragon Queen was not just coming, she was almost here. A cold dread seeped into him, chilling him to the bone, as he realized the true scale of what he had invited. He had not just found hatchlings, he had inadvertently heralded the return of a legend, and the entire planet seemed to be holding its breath. The air grew heavy, the sky darkening with an uncanny, unnatural twilight, as if the very planet held its breath. Kale, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs, understood with a chilling clarity that the time for mere observation and anxious speculation was over. The massive claw marks, the intensifying atmospheric disturbances, the sheer scale of the looming presence, it all coalesced into an undeniable truth. Something was coming, something ancient and powerful, and it was coming for the dragons he had sworn to protect. He didn't know what form it would take, or what its intentions were, but his instincts, honed by years of solitary survival on a hostile world, screamed for action. He had to prepare. His preparations weren't for a fight against the dragons, an absurd notion given their bond, but for them, and perhaps, with them. His priorities shifted from containing them to fortifying their sanctuary, transforming his small outpost into a stronghold that could withstand whatever force Mother Nature, or something far older, was about to unleash. He began by expanding the reinforced enclosure where the dragons now spent most of their time, not just in size, but in sheer structural integrity. He repurposed the heaviest blast doors from his dormant mining equipment, hauling them with grunting exertion and the aid of his automated loader, to create an impenetrable entrance. He shored up the walls with extra layers of compressed durasteel, usually reserved for asteroid impact shielding. The underground hydroponics chambers, once solely for food production, were hastily converted into a deeper, more secure burrow system, intricate tunnels providing escape routes and shelter from atmospheric bombardment. Kale meticulously checked every seal, every weld, every energy conduit, knowing that the smallest flaw could spell disaster. He worked tirelessly, driven by a primal urge to protect, his movements fueled by a desperate energy he hadn't known he possessed. He wasn't just building a physical barrier, he was building a testament to his commitment, a final, defiant stand against the encroaching unknown. Amidst the frantic labor, a profound emotional turmoil churned within him. Kale grappled with the potential consequences of his actions. He knew, deep down, that he had interfered with a powerful natural force, an ecological balance far older than humanity's fleeting presence on Xylos 7. He had nurtured mythical creatures back to life, and in doing so, had drawn the attention of something far grander. The outcome was terrifyingly uncertain. Would this ancient power acknowledge his protective efforts, or would it see him as an unwelcome intruder, a meddlesome pest? He thought of the colony, his past life, the predictable rhythms of his old existence, and it all seemed impossibly distant, a forgotten dream. His solitary journey had brought him to this precipice, and there was no turning back. He had chosen this path, and now he had to face its ultimate conclusion, whatever it might be. A tremor of fear, cold and sharp, ran through him, but it was quickly eclipsed by a fierce, protective love for Ignis, Terra, Ether, and Luna. He would not abandon them now. During a brief respite from his frantic fortifying, compelled by an unnerving intuition, Kale returned to the ancient carvings in the labyrinthine cavern. The air within the subterranean chamber felt heavier, charged with static, as if the very stone was anticipating a momentous event. He had brought more advanced scanning equipment this time, painstakingly translating the enigmatic symbols with a renewed sense of urgency. The glowing reliefs shimmered, almost pulsed, as if responding to the planet's growing energy. And then it clicked. The celestial alignment depicted in the most prominent carving, the one with the colossal dragon embracing the dual moons and distant nebula, wasn't just a historical event, it was a prophecy. The symbols, when deciphered through a sequence of astronomical calculations, spoke of the Great Return, the awakening of the Mother of Scales, during a specific, rare conjunction of Xylos 7 celestial bodies. And to Kale's horror, the calculations indicated that this alignment was not a distant future event, but was fast approaching. Days, perhaps even hours, separated him from the fulfillment of the ancient prophecy. The Dragon Queen was not just coming, she was almost here. A cold dread seeped into him, chilling him to the bone, as he realized the true scale of what he had invited. He had not just found hatchlings, he had inadvertently heralded the return of a legend, and the entire planet seemed to be holding its breath. As the celestial alignment approached, a profound change came over the hatchlings. Their previous boisterous energy vanished, replaced by an unsettling agitation. They paced restlessly within their expanded enclosure, their normally vibrant scales dulled, their eyes wide and unfocused. Deep, mournful cries, unlike any sound Kale had ever heard them make, emanated from their throats, reverberating through the reinforced walls of the outpost. Ignis, usually so bold, huddled close to Terra, whimpering softly. Luna, the most perceptive, pressed her snout against the durasteel barrier, emitting a series of low growls and high-pitched screeches, as if warning of an unseen danger, sensing the imminent event with a primal, instinctual knowing that transcended Kale's human understanding. Their distress was palpable, a frantic energy that mirrored the tightening knot in Kale's own stomach. Kale watched them, a profound internal conflict raging within him. He considered releasing them, urging them to flee into the vast, treacherous wilds of Xylos 7, hoping they might somehow escape whatever cataclysm was about to unfold. It was a tempting thought, a way to absolve himself of the terrible responsibility, a desperate bid for their survival. But then he looked at their frightened faces, their small forms trembling, and his protective instinct, now deeply ingrained, overrode all pragmatism. He couldn't. He simply couldn't abandon them. A deep, unwavering bond connected him to these creatures, a connection forged in shared vulnerability and desperate hope. He would face whatever was coming, with them, by their side. There was no other choice. Then, the sky began its grand, terrifying transformation. Xylos 7's dual moons, usually distinct and separate presences in the alien firmament, began their deliberate convergence. Slowly, majestically, they drifted closer, their gravitational forces visibly affecting the planet's atmosphere, stirring up unprecedented winds and dust storms that whipped around Kale's outpost. As they aligned perfectly, symmetrically, with the distant, swirling nebular cloud that had been the subject of the ancient prophecy, an eerie, powerful celestial display unfolded. The light they cast was not the harsh glare of day, nor the gentle silver of night, but an ethereal, pulsating violet, bathing the landscape in an otherworldly glow. The air crackled with energy, a palpable static that made the hairs on Kale's arms stand on end. The very ground hummed beneath his feet, a low, resonant thrum that resonated with the ancient carvings, with the dragon's mournful cries, with the beating of his own frantic heart. It was a spectacle of cosmic proportions, beautiful yet terrifying, a clear sign that the prophecy was being fulfilled, that the time of the Mother of Scales had finally come. Kale gripped the cold railing of his observation deck, his breath held, his eyes fixed on the transformed sky, waiting for the inevitable. Kale gripped the cold railing of his observation deck, his breath held, his eyes fixed on the transformed sky, waiting for the inevitable. The violet light cast by the twin moons intensified, painting the desolate landscape in hues of deep amethyst and bruised indigo. The air, thick with static electricity, hummed a symphony of ancient power, growing louder, more resonant, until it felt like the very fabric of reality was stretching thin. Then, above the swirling dust and crackling energy, a new shadow began to form, not a fleeting flicker like before, but a monstrous, ancient silhouette. It descended from the heavens slowly, majestically, blotting out the shimmering stars, swallowing the celestial spectacle itself. It was a shape of impossible grandeur, colossal wings unfurling against the cosmic tapestry, a testament to a creature that defied imagination and earthly scale. This was it. This was the Dragon Queen, a being of immense power and majesty, her form a living legend made real. As she drew closer, her head, crowned with sharp, obsidian ridges, became visible, and from beneath prominent brow ridges, two colossal eyes burning with an intense, ancient wisdom, glowed with an internal, terrifying light, piercing the ethereal gloom. The sheer scale of her descent was humbling, terrifying. The ground beneath Kale's feet vibrated with the slow, powerful beats of her wings, each stroke sending gusts of wind that threatened to tear his reinforced habitat from its foundations. She landed silently, with an astonishing grace for a creature of such magnitude, barely a whisper of displaced air, near Kale's outpost. The impact of her landing was not a violent tremor, but a deep, resonant thud that shook the very core of the planet, echoing through Kale's bones. Her immense form dwarfed his small habitat, making it seem like a child's toy dropped carelessly on an ancient battlefield. The glow from her eyes, now closer, was not aggressive, but a steady, incandescent scrutiny, surveying the land, assessing, absorbing. Her presence alone created a palpable pressure, a suffocating weight in the atmosphere, making it difficult for Kale to draw breath. It was as if the very air around her was denser, charged with millennia of existence and unimaginable power. He could feel the raw, untamed force emanating from her, a primordial energy that transcended mere physical size. A profound, paralyzing terror seized Kale, colder than any Xylos 7 winter. His blood ran cold, his limbs felt like lead, and a primal part of his brain screamed at him to flee, to hide, to become nothing more than a speck of dust beneath her colossal claw. But through the terror, through the instinctual urge for self-preservation, a fierce resolve ignited within him. He looked towards the reinforced walls where his hatchlings huddled, their mournful cries now replaced by whimpers of awe and fear. He had promised to protect them, to stand between them and whatever came. He would not break that promise. His hand, shaking but firm, clutched the railing tighter. He took a deep, ragged breath, forcing air into his constricted lungs, and stood his ground. He was a single human, frail and insignificant against the backdrop of this ancient power, but he was their guardian. He would face the Queen. His fear remained, a cold knot in his stomach, but it was now tempered by an unwavering determination, a defiant spark in the face of overwhelming might. He didn't know what words to speak, what gesture to make, but he knew he would not cower. His purpose was clear, to shield the hatchlings instinctively, ready to face the Dragon Queen, ready for whatever judgment or destiny she brought with her. His fear remained, a cold knot in his stomach, but it was now tempered by an unwavering determination, a defiant spark in the face of overwhelming might. He didn't know what words to speak, what gesture to make, but he knew he would not cower. His purpose was clear, to shield the hatchlings instinctively, ready to face the Dragon Queen, ready for whatever judgment or destiny she brought with her. The colossal head of the Dragon Queen, larger than Kale's entire habitat, lowered imperceptibly. Her ancient eyes, glowing with a soft, incandescent light, fixed upon Kale. It was a gaze of immeasurable age, piercing through his fear, seeming to peel back layers of his being and assess his very intentions. There was no aggression in that steady, deep gaze, no immediate threat, only an intense, profound scrutiny that felt as though she saw not just his physical form, but the very essence of his soul. Time seemed to warp, stretching out into an eternity under that unwavering stare. Kale felt his carefully constructed defenses crumble under the weight of her presence, leaving him exposed, vulnerable, yet strangely seen. He could feel a profound intelligence behind those eyes, an understanding far beyond anything he had ever encountered. He knew, with an instinctive certainty, that she was not looking for a fight, but for something else entirely. Behind him, within the reinforced enclosure, the young dragons, initially terrified by the Queen's monstrous arrival, now began to stir. Their whimpers gave way to soft, guttural rumblings, a sound Kale had never heard before, filled with a mixture of apprehension and something akin to reverence. Luna, always the boldest, edged forward, pressing her snout against the transparent durasteel, her silver scales shimmering in the violet light. Then Ignis, Terra, and Ether followed, drawn by an invisible thread, their smaller forms dwarfed by the Queen's shadow. The mournful cries they had emitted before the alignment were replaced by a series of low, chirping calls, growing in intensity, a chorus of recognition that echoed through the otherwise silent landscape. It was a sound of homecoming, of ancient blood acknowledging ancient lineage, a profound resonance between mother and child that transcended species and time. Kale watched, mesmerized, as the young dragons, his hatchlings, slowly approached the Queen, emitting cries that were undoubtedly those of recognition and profound reverence. Their fear was still present, a trembling in their small bodies, but it was overshadowed by an undeniable, instinctual pull towards their matriarch. As the young dragons continued their chorus of recognition, a powerful, nonverbal communication flooded Kale's mind. It wasn't a voice, not a language in the human sense, but a torrent of images, emotions, and ancestral memories, a telepathic communion that bypassed his auditory senses entirely. He saw flashes of ancient landscapes, impossibly vast, teeming with life under different suns. He felt a deep, overwhelming sorrow, a grief that spanned millennia, followed by a surge of relief so profound it brought tears to his eyes. He understood, without words, the arduous, solitary journey the Queen had undertaken, a desperate search across cosmic voids. Then, images of his own actions, the desolate landscape where he found the hatchlings, his careful ministrations, the frantic research, the endless struggle to provide sustenance, the deepening bond of care and protection. He felt a wave of intense gratitude wash over him, a feeling so pure and powerful it almost buckled his knees. This was intertwined with an undeniable sense of ancient lineage, a realization that his small human act had played a critical role in the continuation of something sacred, something far older and more significant than he could have ever conceived. The Queen conveyed a blessing, a deep, silent appreciation, her luminous eyes conveying a depth of emotion that words could never capture. Kale, overwhelmed, could only stand there, absorbing the incredible flood of information and feeling, his mind reeling from the direct transmission of a consciousness so ancient and vast. He was no longer just Kale, the colonist. He was now intricately, irrevocably woven into the tapestry of this ancient, alien world. He felt a sense of purpose, a calling far grander than his simple farm. He was no longer just Kale, the colonist. He was now intricately, irrevocably woven into the tapestry of this ancient, alien world. He felt a sense of purpose, a calling far grander than his simple farm. The telepathic communication, overwhelming in its immediacy, had shifted Kale's perception of reality. It was no longer a matter of scientific curiosity, or even simple nurturing. He was part of something monumental. The Queen's ancient eyes conveyed not just gratitude, but an entire saga. He understood, with a clarity that bypassed mere linguistic interpretation, the Queen's monumental journey. He saw flashes of her traversing vast swathes of interstellar space, a cosmic nomad, for what felt like centuries. She had been protecting the last remnants of dragonkind, not in physical eggs, but as a species carrying its genetic legacy, searching for a safe haven, a world where the ancient ways could once again flourish. The abandoned clutch he had discovered near his outpost was not an oversight, but either a desperate test of the planet's viability, a lost group scattered by some ancient calamity, or perhaps even a deliberate placement, a beacon to draw out a kindred spirit, a guardian. Her quest, now nearing its culmination, was a testament to unimaginable resilience and a fierce devotion to her kind. The truth, conveyed through a torrent of vivid, visceral images, began to unfold the planet's true history before Kale's astonished mind. He witnessed Xylos 7 not as a desolate, resource-scarce rock, but as a vibrant, ancient world, teeming with life, a delicate ecological balance maintained by the dragons. They were not mere apex predators, but intelligent, sentient architects of the ecosystem, their movements and energies shaping the geological and biological cycles of the planet. He saw them as guardians of crucial planetary energies, their very existence intertwined with Xylos 7's life force. Then, the images shifted, showing the arrival of the human colony's ship, a minuscule speck disrupting a timeless harmony. He witnessed the human intrusion as a clumsy, unwitting invasion into an ancient, sacred space. The colony's drilling, mining, and atmospheric processors were depicted as painful lesions on the planet's skin, drawing off its vital essence, disturbing the delicate balance the dragons had so arduously maintained for eons. The irony was not lost on him. Humans, seeking to survive, were inadvertently destroying the very lifeblood of the world that could sustain them. Kale's understanding deepened, expanding beyond the confines of his human upbringing. The dragons were not the mythical beasts of Terran legend, but a highly intelligent, deeply spiritual, and fiercely protective species. Their wisdom was profound, their connection to the planet symbiotic. He realized that his small, seemingly insignificant act of kindness, feeding hungry hatchlings, had not only saved individual lives but had played a crucial, perhaps predestined, role in their survival, and by extension, in the revival of a critical planetary balance. He had unknowingly become a linchpin, a bridge between two vastly different civilizations, a guardian in a much grander narrative than he could have ever imagined. The gratitude flowing from the Queen confirmed his significance, reinforcing the profound connection he now felt. It was a role he embraced, not with pride, but with a deep sense of humility and renewed purpose. The sterile, scientific calculations of his past life seemed utterly trivial compared to the vibrant, living tapestry he was now a part of. He was Kale, the human, but also Kale, the caretaker, the protector, and now, the unwitting harbinger of an ancient prophecy's fulfillment. The weight of this new identity settled upon him, not crushing, but empowering. The telepathic communication, overwhelming in its immediacy, had shifted Kale's perception of reality. It was no longer a matter of scientific curiosity, or even simple nurturing. He was part of something monumental. The Queen's ancient eyes conveyed not just gratitude, but an entire saga. He understood, with a clarity that bypassed mere linguistic interpretation, the Queen's monumental journey. He saw flashes of her traversing vast swathes of interstellar space, a cosmic nomad, for what felt like centuries. She had been protecting the last remnants of dragonkind, not in physical eggs, but as a species carrying its genetic legacy, searching for a safe haven, a world where the ancient ways could once again flourish. The abandoned clutch he had discovered near his outpost was not an oversight, but either a desperate test of the planet's viability, a lost group scattered by some ancient calamity, or perhaps even a deliberate placement, a beacon to draw out a kindred spirit, a guardian. Her quest, now nearing its culmination, was a testament to unimaginable resilience and a fierce devotion to her kind. The truth, conveyed through a torrent of vivid, visceral images, began to unfold the planet's true history before Kale's astonished mind. He witnessed Xylos 7 not as a desolate, resource-scarce rock, but as a vibrant, ancient world, teeming with life, a delicate ecological balance maintained by the dragons. They were not mere apex predators, but intelligent, sentient architects of the ecosystem, their movements and energies shaping the geological and biological cycles of the planet. He saw them as guardians of crucial planetary energies, their very existence intertwined with Xylos 7's life force. Then, the images shifted, showing the arrival of the human colony's ship, a minuscule speck disrupting a timeless harmony. He witnessed the human intrusion as a clumsy, unwitting invasion into an ancient, sacred space. The colony's drilling, mining, and atmospheric processors were depicted as painful lesions on the planet's skin, drawing off its vital essence, disturbing the delicate balance the dragons had so arduously maintained for eons. The irony was not lost on him. Humans, seeking to survive, were inadvertently destroying the very lifeblood of the world that could sustain them. Kale's understanding deepened, expanding beyond the confines of his human upbringing. The dragons were not the mythical beasts of Terran legend, but a highly intelligent, deeply spiritual, and fiercely protective species. Their wisdom was profound, their connection to the planet symbiotic. He realized that his small, seemingly insignificant act of kindness, feeding hungry hatchlings, had not only saved individual lives but had played a crucial, perhaps predestined, role in their survival, and by extension, in the revival of a critical planetary balance. He had unknowingly become a linchpin, a bridge between two vastly different civilizations, a guardian in a much grander narrative than he could have ever imagined. The gratitude flowing from the Queen confirmed his significance, reinforcing the profound connection he now felt. It was a role he embraced, not with pride, but with a deep sense of humility and renewed purpose. The sterile, scientific calculations of his past life seemed utterly trivial compared to the vibrant, living tapestry he was now a part of. He was Kale, the human, but also Kale, the caretaker, the protector, and now, the unwitting harbinger of an ancient prophecy's fulfillment. The weight of this new identity settled upon him, not crushing, but empowering. The Queen then projected a final, somber truth. The planet, Xylos 7, though awakening, was still too fragile, too scarred by human intrusion to safely sustain the young dragons within Kale's care, not without drawing unwanted attention. The drone Kale had discovered, the relentless probing from the human colony, these were clear indications that their presence was already too exposed. The nascent power of the hatchlings, while a miracle, was also a beacon, attracting both potential friends and inevitable foes. The current location, near the human outpost, was a temporary refuge, but not a permanent home. It was a difficult choice, one laden with the weight of ancient wisdom and hard-won experience, a concession to the harsh realities of a changing world. Then, the Queen's consciousness presented Kale with an offer, a path forward that was both an honor and an impossible sacrifice. She offered him a singular choice. He could assist her, guide her and the young dragons to a more suitable, deeply hidden sanctuary, a place untouched by human hands, where the true strength of their kind could flourish once more. Or, he could remain with the colony, return to his old life, and let the dragons vanish into the vastness of Xylos 7, their connection severed. The choice hung heavy in the air, a momentous decision that would forever alter the course of his existence. He saw images of bustling human settlements, the familiar comforts of his tiny habitat, the predictable rhythm of his old life. Then, he saw the faces of Ignis, Terra, Ether, and Luna, their trusting eyes, their vibrant scales. He felt the echo of their happy chirps, the warmth of their bodies against his hand. Kale's decision, when it came, was not born of logic or pragmatism, but from a profound wellspring of love and a newfound respect for the majestic Dragon Queen. His old life, with its solitary routines and sterile logic, suddenly felt hollow, meaningless. The bond he had forged with the hatchlings was unbreakable, a silent vow whispered in dusty winds and nurtured in shared struggle. How could he abandon them, now that he knew their true heritage, their vital role in the planet's future? He looked up at the Queen, her ancient eyes reflecting his resolve. He nodded, a single, definitive gesture. He would follow her. He would abandon his old life, his colony, his species, if it meant protecting these magnificent creatures. His heart swelled with a mix of fear and exhilarating purpose. He was ready to embark on a journey that would redefine his very humanity, step into a future utterly unimaginable just months ago. His heart swelled with a mix of fear and exhilarating purpose. He was ready to embark on a journey that would redefine his very humanity, step into a future utterly unimaginable just months ago. Kale, the lone human, was now irrevocably bound to the fate of the dragons. The journey began with a silent, primal understanding. The Dragon Queen, with Kale perched carefully on a specially adapted saddle of hardened scales near her neck, a position of honor and strategic vantage, rose majestically into the violet-hued sky. Below her, Ignis, Terra, Ether, and Luna, their wings now strong and capable, flew in a disciplined formation, their iridescent scales catching the strange light. Kale's outpost, his home for so long, rapidly receded into a tiny speck against the vast, desolate landscape of Xylos 7. He carried little with him, a small satchel containing his most vital tools, a few emergency rations, and a datapad loaded with all his research on dragon biology and the ancient carvings. The wind whipped past him, cool and thin, carrying the scent of alien minerals and the faint, musky odor of dragon. This was no longer a research expedition or a survival mission. This was an exodus, a quest to find a hidden sanctuary that existed only in ancient lore and the Queen's profound memory. The alien landscape, viewed from miles high, was even more formidable than Kale had ever imagined. They encountered harsh weather almost immediately. Sudden, violent atmospheric currents, driven by the gravitational pull of Xylos 7's dual moons, buffeted them, threatening to tear Kale from his perch. The Queen, however, navigated these invisible currents with an ancient wisdom, her massive body shifting and twisting with effortless grace, shielding Kale and guiding her young. Beneath them, treacherous terrain unfolded, jagged mountain ranges whose peaks scraped the very edges of the mesosphere, vast acidic plains that shimmered deceptively, and deep, shadowed canyons that seemed to swallow the light. They avoided the known human colony routes, veering through unexplored territories, where the air was thinner and the geological formations spoke of primordial forces. One night, sheltering in a massive, wind-blasted cavern, they stumbled upon remnants of ancient alien technology. Not the crude drone Kale had found earlier, but colossal, crumbling structures, clearly not designed by humans or dragons. Twisted, metallic spires, humming with a barely perceptible residual energy, jutted from the cavern floor, intertwined with massive, petrified flora. Some of these structures pulsed intermittently with faint, residual energy, indicating complex systems still dormant within. One such monolithic archway, adorned with strange, angular script, emitted a low, resonant thrum that agitated the young dragons, making them restless and wary. The Queen, however, approached it with caution, not fear, communicating to Kale a sense of lingering danger, a power that even she acknowledged. Kale, using his datapad, managed to interface with a small, glowing console on one of the structures, briefly accessing a fragmented data stream that spoke of old conflicts, of forgotten civilizations, and of powerful energy sources. It was a fleeting glimpse into a history far grander and more perilous than anything he could have conceived. His human ingenuity, his understanding of energy conduits and data streams, became an essential bridge, allowing him to decipher warning signs and interpret the strange energies that permeated these ancient ruins, guiding the Queen away from potential traps or dormant guardians. Kale's role, initially that of a mere passenger, swiftly evolved into something vital. He became an essential bridge between human ingenuity and ancient draconic wisdom. The Queen, through shared consciousness, imparted her knowledge of geological stability, atmospheric patterns, and the subtle energies of the planet. Kale, in turn, offered his understanding of engineering, thermodynamics, and rudimentary xenolinguistics, helping to identify safe passages through volatile zones, interpret the nature of unusual energy signatures, and even suggest structural weaknesses in certain natural barriers that the dragons could exploit. He used his knowledge of atmospheric pressure and wind currents to help the younger dragons conserve energy during long flights, his instruments providing precise data that even the Queen's instinct found useful. He was no longer just the human who fed the hatchlings. He was an active contributor to their survival, a crucial component in this unlikely interspecies alliance. Each challenge overcome, each obstacle circumvented through their combined efforts, strengthened the bond between Kale and his magnificent companions, solidifying his place within their ancient, powerful lineage. His purpose, once vague and solitary, was now sharply defined and shared. The journey had been a crucible, forging Kale's resolve and cementing his place within the draconic family. After weeks of traversing treacherous terrain and navigating atmospheric anomalies, the Queen finally guided them through a narrow, mist-shrouded pass, a crevice barely wide enough for her immense form to squeeze through. As they emerged from the gloom, Kale gasped. Before them lay a breathtaking, untouched valley, hidden within towering mountains whose peaks pierced the perpetual haze, scraping the very edge of the sky. This was not the stark, crimson desolation Kale knew. This was a vibrant, verdant expanse, a secret garden cradled by ancient rock. Lush, bioluminescent flora pulsed with soft light, illuminating crystalline rivers winding through forests of colossal, petrified trees. The air was rich with oxygen, sweet and clean, a stark contrast to the thin, metallic tang of the outer world. This valley thrummed with a deep, pervasive energy, a life force unlike anything Kale had ever encountered. It was clearly rich with resources, a sanctuary not just of beauty, but of sustenance, infused with the undeniable presence of ancient dragon lore, every rock and stream seemingly whispering tales of their past. As they descended into the valley, the young dragons, Ignis, Terra, Ether, and Luna, responded with an exuberance that brought a smile to Kale's face. Their mournful cries were replaced by joyful roars and playful chirps as they soared through the clean air, dipping and weaving between the colossal trees. They thrived almost immediately in their new home, growing rapidly in both size and confidence. The valley was not empty. As the days turned into weeks, other dragons began to emerge from secrecy, their forms ranging from sleek and agile to massive and ancient, their scales a kaleidoscope of colors Kale had never imagined. These were remnants of the Queen's scattered brood, or perhaps other survivors drawn by the resurgence of their matriarch's power. The hatchlings integrated seamlessly, learning ancient aerial dances, participating in complex hunting formations, and engaging in ritualistic displays of fire and light, practices clearly passed down through generations. Kale observed, fascinated, as Luna, ever the most perceptive, seemed to learn the fastest, her silver scales shining as she mimicked the intricate maneuvers of the older dragons, her nascent telepathic nudges now forming coherent projections of thought and emotion. Kale found himself immersed in a new, unexpected purpose. He was no longer just the caretaker of a few lost hatchlings, nor simply a technician maintaining a hydroponics farm. Here, in the heart of the dragon's sanctuary, he became an ambassador, a unique bridge between humanity and this ancient species. He continued to meticulously document their growth, their societal structures, their interactions, but now with the guidance and wisdom of the Queen, who shared insights into their biology and lore. He used his datapad to record the subtle nuances of their communication, the rhythm of their lives, and the profound connection they held with the planet. He became a guardian of the dragon's future, ensuring that their new home remained hidden and undisturbed, using his human knowledge of surveillance and counter-detection to establish perimeter warnings and deflect any potential human or alien probes. He even adapted his hydroponics skills to cultivate specialized flora that enriched the dragon's diet, using the valley's unique mineral deposits. More than just an ambassador or guardian, Kale became a student of their ancient ways. The Queen, through her continuous telepathic communication, taught him about the planet's subtle energies, the flow of ley lines, and the deep, spiritual connection between Dragakind and Xylos 7. He learned to interpret the whispers of the wind, the vibrations of the earth, and the cycles of celestial bodies in a way he never could have as a mere colonist. He spent hours watching the young dragons learn, understanding their complex social hierarchies, their innate wisdom, and their profound respect for life. His quiet observation turned into an active participation in their rituals, their hunts, their shared existence. He was no longer an outsider looking in. He was becoming a part of their world, a human woven into the ancient tapestry of draconic life. He had found a new role, more meaningful and fulfilling than anything his old life could have offered. His journey, from a solitary colonist to an integral part of an ancient, thriving civilization, was complete. He had become Kale, the dragon speaker. Kale, the human woven into the ancient tapestry of draconic life, looked out over the thriving valley, a profound sense of peace settling within him. His initial act of kindness, a simple, impulsive decision to feed a clutch of abandoned hatchlings, had blossomed into an unprecedented interspecies partnership. What began as a desperate struggle for survival had evolved into something far greater, a testament to compassion and an undeniable force ensuring the survival of an intelligent, ancient species. Through his quiet dedication, Kale had not only saved the dragons, he had offered humanity, though unknowingly to them, a new perspective on coexistence, a blueprint for understanding life beyond their own carbon-based existence. He often found himself gazing at the dragons soaring gracefully above, their scales gleaming in the alien sun, a living testament to the second chance he had helped provide. He had found his true purpose, not in mining and colonizing, but in nurturing and understanding. Kale, a man once defined by his reclusive nature and methodical routines, had become a hero, not through grand battles or scientific breakthroughs, but through the quiet, steadfast power of compassion. He watched as Ignis, now a magnificent young dragon, playfully chased ether through the clouds, their roars echoing with unbridled joy. Terra, grounded and powerful, guarded the entrance to a newly discovered cavern, her deep rumbles communicating with the ancient stone itself. And Luna, ever the intuitive leader, sat beside him on a craggy outcrop, her luminous eyes reflecting the vibrant valley below, sharing silent thoughts that resonated with profound wisdom and acceptance. Kale ran a hand over Luna's scales, feeling the warmth of life, the strength of her growing body. He knew, with an absolute certainty, that he had helped bring them back, not just from the brink of extinction, but into a new, flourishing era. His past life, the distant human colony, remained completely unaware of the greater wonders existing on their adopted world, their continued focus on resource extraction blinding them to the true treasures that Silos 7 held. Kale often wondered what they would make of this incredible reality if they ever discovered it, but he knew, instinctively, that this sanctuary, this life, must remain a secret. It was a secret he was honored to keep, a trust he would never betray. His solitude was no longer a burden, but a blessed isolation, filled with the vibrant, ancient life he safeguarded. He had traded a sparse, predictable existence for a rich, unpredictable one, and he wouldn't change a single moment. If this story of Kale's extraordinary journey, where compassion triumphed over pragmatism and myth became reality, touched your heart, then remember to subscribe for more tales of courage and discovery. Don't miss our next video, exploring the mysteries of forgotten civilizations, where we uncover ancient secrets buried beneath the sands of time.